This video is sponsored by 1Password.
Grab the popcorn for this one, guys. I'm going to be talking your ear out. I lived with the Tesla Model Y as my only vehicle over the last 2 years. With over 33,000 miles on it, it's been an experience. Here's what it's really like owning an EV from someone who's only lived with an EV the last 2 years. Let's get started. I want to preface this by saying that everything that I say in this video are things that I wish I knew when I first started this journey. And EV ownership is different depending on where you are in the world. And if you live in the US like me, it's different if you live down here where it's always hot, humid, and rainy, or up north where the winters are bitterly cold and actually see snow. I haven't seen snow down here in a long time. So I'm going to talk about this from the perspective of someone who lives in Houston, Texas, and that could be drastically different than someone who lives in Chicago or New York or even Europe. And since I own a Tesla, I want to talk about this in two parts. One about general EV ownership and another on just Tesla ownership as a whole, since those two things, while are similar in some ways, aren't always exactly the same. If you're looking to get into EVs, the biggest thing you have to look at is where are you gonna charge this thing? As a homeowner, it's easy for me to just call my local electrician, get a dedicated EV charger installed in my garage, and use that every single day. And it works great. If you live in an apartment or condo, your options could be significantly limited to the point where you might want to not consider an EV at all. EV charging is split into 3 different levels. Level 1, which uses your standard household outlet. Level 2, which uses a plug your washer or dryer uses, or a hardwired EV wall charger. And lastly, fast charging. Those Tesla superchargers, Electrify America stations, and some other brands that you see out and about. Think of it like this. If it's a level 1, it'll take a day or more to charge. If it's level 2, it'll take a few hours. And level 3, minutes to charge, usually within an hour. The actual speed depends on a bunch of different things like car, battery size, temperature, and speed of the chargers that you're using. The real major benefit of EVs comes from the convenience and cost effectiveness of a home level 2 charger. You get home after work or whatever you did that day with whatever battery percentage you're at, charge it up, and when you wake up in the morning, you have a full battery. You no longer have to go to a gas station, so you're not standing out there during winter in the freezing cold, or during the summer sweating your butt off, or you don't have to deal with the interesting people that approach you as you fill up your tank. I think this might reignite into a big issue for EV owners at public stations when EVs become the dominant vehicle type though, since you'll be there for longer than you would if you were getting gas. But overall, not having to go to a gas station is such a great thing. I genuinely don't miss it. Except now, for all the garbage that I accumulate, I have to remember to throw it away when I get home instead of at the gas station while I'm filling up my car. Small price to pay. Most of the EVs available today are more tech focused than their gas counterparts, and that includes making sure that you have a dedicated app and login information to control some of their features, like locking and unlocking the vehicle, preconditioning the car, and opening trunks. And all of this is behind a login and password. But if you want to ensure that your passwords are secure, you might want to check out today's sponsor, 1Password. 1Password is a password manager that makes it convenient and secure to create, store, manage, and share all of your passwords. 1Password combines industry-leading security with award-winning design so that everyone can have user-friendly, secure, and private password management. Do you dislike the fact that your passwords aren't shared across all of your different devices? 1Password fixes that with support and syncing between Windows, Mac, Android, and iOS. It even has autofill functionality for quicker logins. I personally hate having to remember over 1,000 different passwords with a million different variations. With 1Password, it's kind of in the name. You just need to remember one strong password that protects all of your stuff, like passwords, Wi-Fi passwords, and credit cards. Are you struggling to come up with strong passwords yourself? Well, 1Password will generate strong, unique passwords for you that then get stored with all your other passwords in an encrypted vault that only you can access. Since it's all encrypted, if someone somehow hacks 1Password, your passwords will look just like random, nonsensical gibberish. Because I have so many different devices, I really like having access to all my passwords through 1Password, regardless of device, and knowing they're all secure. It's so convenient. You can get 1Password on a personal plan, but if you want to protect your family too, there's an available family plan that will save you some cash per person as well. So protect yourself or your family with 1Password by checking out the link in the video description below for 25% off their individual and family plans. And thanks again to 1Password for sponsoring this portion of the video. If you live in an apartment or condo, there might just be a wall outlet in the parking garage or parking lot that would take forever to charge your car. Plus, you'd have to talk to your property owner about getting approval to use it. But that's not to say that you can't own an EV living in an apartment or condo. A lot of apartments do have EV chargers. Just by looking on apartments.com, I can actually find a few. But in these situations, you play by your property owner's rules when it comes to charging. The cost of charging could be low or high, and the EV charging spot could be more expensive. So be sure that you know all of that. It is doable, but if you don't have any kind of on-premise charging, either at home or at work, then that's when I'd start looking at gas vehicles or hybrid vehicles, because the cost of EV charging at a public charger is a tiny bit cheaper, but pretty much close to just fueling a gas car. For example, here in Houston, one of the gas capitals of the US, it cost me about 3 times more to charge in public versus my at-home electric rate. So let's talk about public EV charging infrastructure. This is probably one of the most confusing aspects of EV ownership, but I'll try to explain it the best that I can. If you own a Tesla, everything is super simple. Type it into your car's GPS, drive there, find a spot, plug in, and you're good. If you own any other EV, you can't use the Tesla superchargers because those use the NACS port, and your car uses the CCS port. Kind of like how Apple had the Lightning port for their phones and Androids used USB Type-C, except a very small number of Tesla superchargers do support the CCS port, but it's very few. You can use your car's built-in fast charger finder, but the info isn't always the most accurate, and it's hard to tell how many stalls are broken until you actually get to the station. But once you get to that charging station though, you usually have to have an account with that charging station company. Now imagine that you're driving on a long road trip. This could be a huge pain trying to get a signal and setting up an account for a brand that you normally don't use. Tesla makes this experience super seamless since they're all within the same ecosystem. When you plug in your Tesla into a supercharger, it charges your Tesla account, no need to do anything. To be fair though, that's all about to change during this year. A lot of the brands that use that CCS port will begin transitioning to using the NACS port for cars made in 2025 and gain access to those Tesla superchargers. And with that, starting in this year, those same car manufacturers will offer adapters for their old cars with CCS that you can use at Tesla superchargers. Ford and Rivian were the first to get access and are just now shipping out adapters to their EV owners. So it'll be really interesting to see how all of this plays out, and finding a charging station might be an issue of the past. When buying an EV, one of the biggest things people look out for and are scared of in their EV is range. And let me tell you, it's a mess to figure out. In the US, the most common standard you'll find is the EPA estimate, and that's what manufacturers report, similar to what they do for gas vehicles. However, this is an estimate that is half freeway driving and half urban city driving tests in ideal conditions. So unless you're driving in a perfect temperature controlled lab or in the city all the time, you're most likely not going to get the range that's reported on the spec sheet. There are so many different things that can affect your range, like how fast you're driving, the weather, outdoor temperature, if you're towing something, and what something that you're towing. But if you're towing long distances a lot, an EV might put you worse off because it has a drastic impact on range, and having to charge for 30 minutes every hour and a half of towing would add too much time. In my own experience, for as long as I owned the Tesla Model Y, I can't remember any times that I ever got to the reported range, especially on medium distance trips like from Houston to Dallas or Houston to Austin. When you finally step foot into an EV for a long road trip, you might get this nagging fear that's been dubbed range anxiety. This is the fear that whatever charge you have in your EV isn't enough to get you to the next charging station. And honestly, I did have a bit of range anxiety when I first got my car, but it went away because I quickly realized that I never got into a situation where I'd be close to running out of range before reaching the next charging station, especially on a road trip. Also, when you are planning out that family road trip, keep in mind that plenty of hotels now offer EV charging on premise, and sometimes even for free. So just like you do at home, you can just charge up at night and wake up to a full battery to go on your way without needing to stop at a charging station. Okay, at this point, I want to break down some of the ownership costs of EVs that I've personally experienced, but I'll highlight some of the big ones. Installing a wall charger at home costs around $500, but can be more expensive if where you plan to charge your EV is far away from your breaker box. The further away it is, the higher the cost. An EV wall charger to use with that installation could vary in price all the way from $300 to even $1,000, depending on what type of features you want built into it and what brand you select. That's one-time costs. As for recurring costs, I did have to replace my cabin air filter because some Teslas have this habit of getting stinky in humid environments, and the cost of the filters are $34 for a pair. I did pay labor costs for this because I had Tesla service install it and they charge labor for that, but you can actually do it yourself. Beyond that, in Texas, the state I live in, beginning in late 2023, they began charging EV owners a $200 EV registration fee every single year. This is to ensure EV owners are being charged for their share of public roads, which regular gas cars already get charged in the price of gas based on usage. But of course, that's only in Texas and only affects us. If you live in a different state, your laws may be a little bit different. Also, I noticed I went through tires way faster on the Model Y. This is due to a bunch of different factors. EVs have the potential to chew through tires faster, especially if you get a little trigger happy with that instant torque. And I will admit, as a first-time EV owner, I did hit the accelerator pretty often towards the beginning of my EV ownership. But that's kind of worn off, and I do expect that my next pair of tires to last a bit longer because I won't floor it as much anymore. So for that, I spent around $1,800 on new tires. Beyond air filters and new tires, there wasn't any maintenance I had to do to this car. To be fair though, any new car, gas or electric, would have very little maintenance the first few years of ownership beyond the usual stuff like oil changes. I drive around 15 to 16,000 miles a year. When it comes to charging costs for the last year, I paid around $602 with a heavy focus on at-home charging. And when I compare that to a similar vehicle like the Lexus NX350 and NX350 Hybrid, using their combined miles per gallon and assuming $3.20 for medium grade gas, I calculated that I would have spent around $2,000 on the NX350 and $1,230 for the NX Hybrid for a year of fueling. So there are some savings when it comes to EV charging. So the gap gets wider and wider if you drive more and more. But at the same time, unlike gas cars, there's no premium electricity. You pay the same price for electricity for the cheapest EV and the most expensive EV. So if you're looking at really expensive EVs, the fueling costs for them would be significantly less than a premium gas vehicle that would use the highest end gas. But there's something that's a relative unknown for EVs, that's longevity. The average age of a car on the road in the United States is over 10 years old. The average age of an EV on the road? Less than 4, because EV sales have exploded really just in the last 5 years. So as the electric fleet matures, it'll be interesting to see how they hold up compared to gas vehicles in the long term, for better or for worse. We just don't know for sure yet. All right, now let's talk about this from a Tesla ownership point of view. I love the Model Y. I really do, to the point where I can't really see myself going back to gas vehicles unless my life drastically shifted somehow, like if I needed to tow a lot or I started living in really cold climates. But as my daily driver, I can't look back. Tesla is a very beginner-friendly brand when it comes to getting introduced to the world of electric cars. It's EV easy mode. The supercharging stations, the easy-to-use UI, and app experience are all fantastic, but at the same time, they do some things that I think might turn some people away. The pricing is transparent, which is a good thing, but it's also constantly changing. You could be purchasing a Model Y for $60K like it was during its peak in 2022, or purchase a similar one right now for about $42,000 after the federal tax credit. So you're always wondering and waiting to see if you can get a better deal. And if you bought it when it was $60,000, say hello to everyone's favorite friend, depreciation. It's normal for car dealers to put market adjustments on vehicles, and they don't tell you until you're about to negotiate, but Tesla will just adjust the price on the website. Also, model years don't really exist for Tesla. They may have a model year, but it doesn't tell you everything about that car or what happened in that year. They're constantly iterating on their vehicles, usually making them better and sometimes worse by removing certain things that used to be available on their vehicles. They do some cool things like adding a more powerful computer into their cars to make the UI snappier and adding a software update that adds a side view when you turn your blinker on. But then they do things like remove the ultrasonic sensors that are really accurate for parking their cars, so you have to solely rely on the cameras, leading to less accurate measurements when parking. But what Tesla does well, and they do this really well, is make it hard to miss other cars. Their in-car and app features have so much tech in them, from a security system, integrated dash cam, really good adaptive cruise control with lane keep assist, being able to control most of the car from my phone, and even nice to haves when I'm waiting at a supercharger, like built-in streaming or being able to blast the AC without worrying about idling my car. These aren't typically what someone would consider luxury features in a car, but it makes existing in a Tesla very comfortable. Tesla also provides incentives to their owners. If you own a Tesla product, car or solar, you'll be able to refer people you know to purchase one. And if they do, you receive some points. These points can be redeemed for some merch, car upgrades, free supercharger miles, and raffles where you could potentially win a Tesla vehicle. Now, I mentioned all this because technically, this gives owners a financial incentive to be positive about the brand because they do receive a small benefit if you purchase one with their code. I'm not saying they can't be honest with you. I'm just saying they might be a little bit more enthusiastic about the vehicle than if they didn't have that incentive. All right, I've talked a lot, and I guess I have to conclude this video now. As someone who switched to all electric 2 years ago, do I regret it? Owning an EV is a little different than owning a gas-powered vehicle. There are some things that are way more convenient, like charging at night and having a full tank every morning, being able to idle in your car without the engine running, and the lower cost of charging at home. And then there are some things that are a little frustrating, like longer fueling times during long trips, or the cost of charging your car with public fast chargers, or their inefficiencies at towing or driving in extremely cold weather. So really, the type of activities that you do in your personal life should determine what vehicle that you buy. But I will say one thing. I think electric cars at this point are only getting better from here. And for me personally, I don't think I could easily go back. But I also completely understand why people might not want to switch yet. But after owning a Tesla, it's really been a gateway EV that's got me interested in other EVs. Like the Rivian R1S seems really cool, and the Porsche Macan EV looks nice. I don't know. I think I've gotten more into EVs after owning one. Anyway, what do you guys think? What cars are you looking at? Was this information helpful? Are you looking at an electric or a gas vehicle? I'd love to hear your thoughts, so put them all down in the comment section below. My brain's all scrambled from talking too much. I just think this is a really cool space right now that's only continuing to grow. Anyway, I'll see you all next time. Bye.